feast, or the fast days for Domitian, the Friday which we commemorate the cross being the first day for that particular Lenten period. Once again, the Church brings forth to us this cross. As I said to you on many other occasions, at least 3 times a year, we are reminded of the value of this cross in our lives. And also how I said to you that if you consider it as if it were a person, a live person, you then have a better understanding of the sort of role that it plays in our salvation. The cross, which to us represents that suffering and difficulties in life, is something that is inescapable to any. Be they rich, be they poor, be they young, be they old, be they educated, be they illiterate, whatever. Everybody goes through this. This is demonstrated again and again through lives, through the people you see yourselves, and from all the others around the world. Each one goes through this period of the cross in their life. How they bear that and how their attitude is to that will determine, once again, their path to salvation or damnation. There is a much broader aspect about this. It says in the Psalms that the Lord has this cup of wine and it's splashing around full and it spills over. This cup is the unrighteousness that builds up in the world to such an extent that it fills that cup and pours out. In other words, there are limits to how much unrighteousness the Lord is allowed to bear in this world. And certainly we see in our time now this unrighteousness being poured out upon the world. And hence that cross, out of the blue in really one day, has come and brought the whole world to its knees completely. Yes, it has been instrumented by evil people and they will receive their reward for that. But the others as well are getting a big wake-up call upon why they live the sort of life that they live. And you know yourself the sort of lives that people live, whether they be in the west or east or north or south or whatever. Virtually every country now is the same. It's almost worthless travelling, especially like for a tourist, because wherever you go it's all the same. You're going to New York, Melbourne, you go to San Francisco, you go to Seoul, wherever you go, everything looks the same. The buildings are the same, the sort of shops are the same, the food's more or less the same, maybe the language is a bit different, but English is always there, everywhere. In other words, the world has become one, very much similar to the way it was during the time of Christ, when everybody had to go and be registered. As you know, with Elder Joseph, his mother, and himself had to go to Bethlehem, their hometown, to be registered. The whole world had to be registered. And what are we having now today in the world? Registration. Registration of everybody, one way or another, through the computer systems and in other ways. The reading that we just had now about the period when Christ was put before the Roman authorities, but more importantly before the Jewish Sanhedrin, we see that the aspect that comes through is this thing called the law. Pilate, who was the main governor at that time and basically determined whether a person could live or die, felt in his heart and knew that the Lord was innocent of the charges that they brought upon him. What did the Jews do? We have a law, and by that law he must die, they said. And Pilate said, well, I don't find any fault in him. They said, well, in that case, you are not a supporter of Caesar. And that, of course, frightened him. Once you start putting high-powered politics against a governor like that, he gives in. This law is so much a part of us everywhere. People today consider that unless something is written, I's dotted, T's crossed, nailed down, officially stamped and whatever, it has no meaning. Why? Well, it's because they've lost the whole notion of what Christianity is all about. The Lord did not write anything and did not give a whole series of laws that can be sort of jotted down in some sort of database or something like that. And the reason he didn't was because he created us, we belong to him, and we belong to the heavenly realm. Some 8,000 years ago, we were kicked out. The Lord did everything he could to try and bring us back, to such an extent that out of love, he finally became one of us forever. And through that, brought us back into that heavenly realm. Without destroying our free will, without touching our own inspiration. Because when you start putting a law down, you virtually take away free will from the people, because then they have to bow down to some sort of edicts or whatever. And edicts don't have the eternal and infinite value than the law of the heart written by Christ. Because there are always exceptions. That's the beauty of orthodoxy, but at the same time, it's that which many people find very hard to take. Many people cannot take the fact that Christ came not to bind, not to give us a religion, because a religion is something that binds, that chains a person, chains them to a set of precepts and laws and all such things. But he came to give us freedom, to give us to express our individuality, to be creative in our lives. With the knowledge that he came to give us, to draw us back into that kingdom he had lost. And he wants us to be part of that right here on earth by listening to his voice within ourselves. Those who are very weak in that respect, okay, use those precepts that have been written for us as sort of guidelines, mind joggers, but try and rise above them, because they are limited. The moment you write anything down, it is always limited compared to that which dwells in the heart through the Lord's word. Even in the time of Moses, there was this aspect which said that the Lord will write the commandments in the hearts of people. Whether you are Orthodox, whether you are Christian, whatever you are, even an atheist, that law exists, and therefore it is not a religion, but merely the calling back to where we are supposed to be and where we have departed from. That is so important to understand, particularly with Orthodoxy. We are not a religion, we are not comparable to Buddhism or Islam or anything like that. They are all inventions, whether they were after Christ or before. They are inventions usually inspired by the demons. But Christ created us, God created us, and he wants us back into that heavenly realm. And he did his part in all of that through the Old Testament and then through the New Testament, calling back not only those who are still alive, but those who had departed and went to that place of darkness, Hades. That's why it was necessarily for him to be crucified, so he could go there too and draw those people out. That's a state of affairs of where we are and what orthodoxy is. And if anybody ever says to you, what religion are you? You say, well, what religion? I'm an Orthodox Christian. I believe in, being the product of God, of one of His child, and I'm trying to find my way back into the realm from which we were kicked out once. It's not a religion. I hope you can understand that and think about that. All the prayers and all the services and all the things that we have in the church center around that aspect. You have to have your heart in the right place, not just your mind, because when humans fell, both the mind and the heart and the body fell. And many people, particularly those who call themselves Christians, consider that the mind didn't fall. It's so highly, intelligent and can embrace all the mysteries of the world through study and research and all those sorts of things. Well, no, it can't. It can't. It cannot penetrate into the heavenly realm unless one is accepting that which Christ came to give us through the Holy Church. This period of the Great Fast for the Domitian Mother of God, which goes for 2 weeks, has these 3 major feasts where we have the cross, which we're commemorating today, then Transfiguration coming this week, and then finally the Domitian of the Mother of God, which is also one of the feast days of our church. And we will give you the dates for those so that you can attend and have Holy Communion and participate in those services. But in the meantime, be aware of this progression of the cross through the world, both the believers and to non-believers. It is something that's become very vital, this overflowing of unrighteousness, spilling out from the cup of Christ, who can bear to a great extent, but there are points where it has to be stopped, because otherwise it can go to such an extent where there is no coming back at all. This is a call to come back. This is a call to remember why we are here and what we should do in our lives and inspire others in that